you ready? I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Project Aegis, and the rest is mystery.
So this is Calendros is the one that
Calendros.
Yep. He's the big homie that paid and requested for this.
That's my man.
So this is a band. It's a special.
He hasn't talked to me in a trillion years.
Well, he's obviously been doing more important things. He said this band is a special charity project, and 100% of the sales from the song go to give music lessons to kids that were victims of abuse. So
wow.
I say we give him back the money that he paid for this review so he can give it to that fund.
100%.
This song features vocals from Matt from Theocracy.
100%.
Prog rock legend Neil Morse. Leah, not the Village Leah, although I think it is kind of a Village Leah. She's on our Instagram. Look.
I know who she is.
Okay. So,
I know.
And the incomparable Daniel Hyman. No, did I say that right?
The incomparable Daniel who?
Why do you say that last name?
Yeah, Hyman
okay.
From Lost Horizon.
I think the message of the song will speak to you in Vin, and the official is safe for reactions, he said. So, we're about to play the official. I don't know.
What?
If you want to announce how we do that, you can. When it's something like this and it's for kids for abuse, I don't want to make our announcements. Just want to kind of spend the time on the
rest is mystery. Let's go.
On the actual song. Ready?
Yep.
Once upon a lonely journey.
Wow. You can sing, bro.
Same as everywhere she has been. Just an ordinary, quiet girl. Scarred by ordinary men. So she tries every single day to wish upon a million miles away, and dreams that the life she's meant for is maybe not so far away. In the shadow of his father, wearing blood that's not his own, as he squandered his inheritance for the only life he's known. So he tries every single day to wish upon a million miles away, and prays that the life he's meant for is maybe not so far away.
Hey, that's like my guitar. My guitar. Shout out to Becky. Shout out to Joe. Let's go.
She's so overwhelming like a river, raging with its depth so deep and wide. Legend of a promise to deliver to the other side. Standing at the edge, they heard a calling. Deep down, they always knew there's something more. is a mystery why you chose me. A broken life reborn.
Wow. Wow.
Yo!
That was really good.
That's deep, bro.
Yep.
That's deep.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I was like, so that first guy comes and sings. I apologize. What are the names here?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know
so
anything,
the first-
except for Leah. Shout out to Leah.
Yeah. So the first guy.
Bring up Killandross's.
So the first guy comes in, and I'm like, right here. But it doesn't tell you which one is which. Well, he says legend Neil Morse, so I don't know if it's
This
him.
song features Matt from Theocracies.
We already
Neil
read
Morse.
this.
I think it was Neil Morse, right?
Okay, I know.
They named them once
oh
the
yeah,
video
that's
started,
true.
you
That's
weirdo.
true. Okay, well,
Here.
why didn't you say that to begin with? That
Why
would
didn't
make
you
more
say
sense.
that before?
Oh, what are you doing?
No, I'm
Okay,
just
here
playing
it
it
is.
because it does all the intros.
Okay, yeah, Neil-
So
okay,
Neil
so
Morse
Neil-
is a singer. Yeah.
Neil comes in. I'm like, what? That voice.
I know. I didn't
Because-
match his body.
No, it didn't. That's what happened. I was looking at him, and like sometimes I picture people like in another. It's really terrible. Maybe I do it for entertainment. I don't know why I do it. But so like this guy, I just pictured him like, I don't know, like you could picture him behind a desk at the insurance place.
Yeah.
And like you would never imagine that voice. It's really terrible, but that lady at the gym that has the really long brown hair. You know which one I'm talking about. I always like trim her hair and then put like an old lady bubble cut on her. You know what that looks like?
Oh,
today?
yeah.
And
Lady
I'm
at
like,
the gym.
whoa, that hair makes her. That's a good idea. Anyway,
Is that what you do so you don't get mad at her?
No, well,
the
maybe,
end? Is that the
but
idea?
no, actually, that's not what happened. It's just she always had like a hat on, and she took her hat off, and then I was like, oh, because you always. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I don't need to announce it all just in case people watch our video. But anyway, so that's what happened like with him, and then his voice came out. I was like, what is this? Like he has such a great voice. Then the other kid came on. Well, he's not a kid, but. You know, compared to the
Matt
other guy.
Smith.
Yeah. So Matt comes on and he has a crazy voice. I'm like, where is Leah gonna come into this?
I
Like,
know.
this is
I
already
know.
so great. And then all three of them came in. You gave out a shout when that happened with all three of them.
Well,
it was
that
just like,
and like lyrically what was happening. So this guy was in Theocracy, Matt Smith. He was also in Ghost Ship. That's interesting.
and this Daniel guy, his
Daniel Hyman.
yeah, his voice you know, people are gonna be mad. They're gonna be like, you don't know who friggin' what the
You don't know who Daniel Hyman is?
Yeah.
He was in Lost Horizon. He's from Sweden.
Oh my gosh, he's 51?
Yeah, he's taking some of that collagen, bro.
Okay, obviously he's doing something. Looking all young in his little hat. I thought he was like 28.
I know, I thought he was like a teenager.
I thought he was younger than me.
What's up with that? What you taking, bro?
Send us the links. Anyway, so I always am in this dilemma when songs are going on because I like watching people like putting their art out there.
Yeah.
And like to see who's like feeling it. Like this older guy was like feeling some of the things that he was going, you know?
Yeah.
And even this guy, even what was that Matt? Yeah, even Matt Smith
That's my
was.
fella.
Yeah, so like I was like, wow. And then I'm pretty sure Leah has like multiple kids. And so I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm not getting it confused with somebody else, but I think
Why?
Leah has multiple kids, and so I always feel like, and look at her, she's all put together on the camera, and she's putting out a song, and she's like doing this for like kids who have been abused. Like, a shout out to all the moms, but I think sometimes like just being just doing the mom stuff takes up so much time. To be able to find time to do other things is like incredible. And so
yeah, but you're
if I have the right person, yes,
you're
but
a mom with a bunch of kids,
yes,
and you're all put together,
yeah,
and
but
you've done good
no,
stuff
I'm not
for
put
people.
together. I'm not showered. I mean, this is what we do. Look at our videos, you'll see. But anyway, I was looking. There was this lady that just had a baby. I actually screenshot it because I was going to show it to you, but it was too much to explain. But she was like, I've been rolling on 4 hours of sleep. I'm a superwoman. And I was like, that's a good I always just like look down on myself. I'm like, I'm getting barely no sleep and I can't accomplish as much as I want to accomplish. But then I'm like, yeah, she's bragging about just 4 hours of sleep. I'm going on 4 hours of sleep too. Plus I have a bunch of kids and I'm trying to keep our room clean, which is really difficult with Vinny in the room. Anyway. And Orion, he just dumped a bunch of chips all over the floor and they're crunched all over the place. So anyway, so that like makes me realize.
When you saw Leah.
Well, when I saw Leah, I was like, here she's putting out this great music, and she's got herself situated, the nice little flower pot in the background, and like, I think it's just hard for to find time to do everything, and then on top of that, to do a project for charity is like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like you're gonna gain material things off of it. Like, obviously the gain is great.
Right.
Like she took the time to get in on that, and I think that is awesome, and I'm very. At first, she also looks like somebody I used to know. And I love that person very much.
Yeah, it was a good song lyrically. It's kind of like a remix of the Prodigal Son because you had a girl in there, you had a girl and a guy.
Yeah.
And they kind of meet each other and then jump on the boat and follow Jesus, basically, is what I got from it.
So at the beginning, I'm like, it sounded like the Prodigal Son, and then the end, it sounded like, becoming Christians, but I didn't think that was actually what it was about.
Yeah, it says right here, standing on the edge, they heard a calling. Deep down, they always knew there was something more, one to pay the toll and get them safely to the shore. And then it says, so they ran and jumped on board, and at once their great adventure began. Right? So that's the motif of Jesus calling you, like Peter.
Following that burning call.
Yeah, Peter said, Peter's a fisherman, yada yada. He's on the shore. Jesus says, "Follow me," yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Don't look back one by one. They threw their bags over the side and followed on. Life as they know is gone. Right. So they're prodigals. They're lost, and then Jesus calls them, and they jump on the boat. And
well, I think
it's true. You're never the same.
And I think that part is well. Okay, wait a minute. That's probably the opposite. I always flip these things. When it says that they threw their bags over the side, I'm assuming now that I'm saying it out loud that they threw their bags into the boat. But for me, it was like they threw their bags over the side as in into the water. Like, there's no turning back now. Like, you don't have, like, you're going all in, is what I took from it.
I mean, you can interpret it that way.
But I see as I said it out loud that...
Where does this say? They threw their bags over the side and followed
on. It sounds like they threw them and then they followed that way, you know what I mean? But probably it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But either way,
this song was pregnant with purpose.
Yeah.
And I just, it's one of those things where the story, I just cannot get over the story, and they talk about the rest is mystery.
Yep.
It really, really is. As a person who what do you want?
charger. I figured you would know by me tugging on it and then giving the bring it over here motion.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like, you know, apologetics and blah, and I feel pretty confident that I can argue blah blah blah, but none of the arguments that I use are the reason why I am a Christian. Like, I'm a Christian because
Oh yeah.
before I was verbal, you know, he reached out to me.
What's that verse in Jeremiah? I couldn't think of it today.
What?
The one basically.
Before I called you in the womb, I knew you.
Bingo, that's what it was. I couldn't even good joke.
How'd you forget
I don't know. I've said it so many times, and I was like, well.
Yeah, God shows up to Jeremiah, and Jeremiah's got this big thing he's got to do, and God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you."
Yeah.
And that's a really big thing, man. You know, like Psalm 139. You know, your eyes saw my unformed substance. Like, that's a crazy thing, and I feel privileged that I believe that so deeply, because that line is crazy, because, you know, the woman is generally the first to find out that she's pregnant, you know, humanly speaking. But even before the mother knows, God knows.
Right.
And he's in there, and he's already in relationship with us, you know, in Psalm 139. And it says fearfully and wonderfully made. And it's like, that's a crazy idea. That God, who just says, let there be this, let there be that, is fearfully creating Ian. Like, it just seems like, you know, like, especially, this is an Old Testament God, like, which the Old Testament God's my favorite, I love him. But, like, if you see the way he creates, it doesn't really seem like in Genesis 1, like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of effort being exerted. You know, just, let there be light. You know, I think it'd be a good galaxy over there. And okay, galaxy says, okay, here I are. And, like, and then all through, like, the Old Testament, like, is anything too hard for the Lord? And then, you know, he saw there was no one to help, so his right hand worked justice. So it's like, it's all these things where God's just basically stunting, like, come on, y'all, like, this is not a big deal for me. I'm Yahweh. But then, like, when he talks about creating Ian or whatever, it's like, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and God's like, whoa, wait a second. I'm creating one of my images now. This is different than just a little galaxy or something like that. This is Ian, you know? And so it's like, it's like, it's just it's a mysterious thing to know that I've been known and loved like that since before I was conscious of myself, or before my mother was conscious of me, or anybody, that I was already. And it, you know, it's unbelievable to me. It's an unbelievable thing to me to be a Christian, and to be able to. That's one of the biggest things I've learned in this channel, is to be grateful for the ability to believe the stuff that you know, when you grow up in a Christian context, people are almost like bored with it, like, oh yeah, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, sure, oh yeah, and we put it on a coffee mug or something like that, and it's like, people don't like it. Kind of cheapens the and if you have one of those, like, you know, I'm not mad at you, I'm just saying, like,
well, no, I think
we just get used to it.
It's one of those things, if you have one of those mugs like this, now that you've heard this review thing, you know what I mean? You can now notice that cup again. You know, notice the meaning behind it, and it's not just, you know, cursive on a cup. It's like actually.
Was it
cursive? If any of you out there can, it usually is, you know, the cursive writing. I was like, if any of you out there can read cursive, since they don't really teach it anymore. But when I talk to the kids about, sometimes kids ask me questions that I'm like, well, how the frick am I supposed to answer this? They'll be like, Sayla was like, so I don't. It's kind of weird that whole thing, she's pointing at our 7-week-old, that whole thing was like just made inside you. Like, basically, like, who told it to do that?
Yeah.
It created 2 eyes, 2 arms, 10 fingers, you know. Yeah. Like, how did that even happen?
No purposeful, so just blind, random.
Honestly, I don't know the depth of all that stuff either. It is pretty bizarre to me that I don't have to tell my body to do it.
Yeah.
Like, my body just does it. And it's one of the also interesting because it's not like there's like amazing things out there that are kind of like a freak of nature, like an albino whatever. You know what I mean? People are like, what in the world? But this is like basically, you know, with the exception of some sad stories, basically every woman can do this. This like crazy thing to like
it's insane.
Compile a human being inside your body. It's like
insane.
Yeah. And it's like involuntary, as in like you don't tell yourself to keep breathing or tell your heart to pump. And it's the same thing with that baby. You don't tell your body to keep making the baby, it just does.
Yeah, and the word, you know, I looked it up. You know, it's in the Septuagint.
Oh, but wait, hold on, let me finish that.
Yeah.
So I was talking to her about, well, I used to read the King James Version, so it always has like some weird wording. So I'm like, well, the Bible says that God knit you together in your mother's womb. Well, she's been knitting lately. She was like, oh my gosh, that's so gross. Knitted? Why would it say knitted? And I'm like, well, it means just like that God's the one that like put you together, and like God's the one that basically whispers to your body to tell it what steps to take next, you know, like.
Yeah.
So it's, anyway, but.
Yeah, well.
You were going there, and then I.
Well, so I'm like, let me look at the, you know, original Hebrew or Greek, and you know, in the Hebrew is phobos or phoberos, you know, phobia, where it says fearfully and wonderfully made.
What? Really? It's phobia?
Yeah, it's phobos. Yeah, and then the Hebrew is has the same meaning, fear,
weird.
to be afraid. So it's like.
Well, why do you think he's afraid?
It's characterized. I just think it's a hyperbolic way of saying that God was singularly, like, when he creates one of his image bearers, like, it's different from anything else he makes.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's also like when you're playing Jenga,
yeah.
and you're like,
yeah.
Like nothing's gonna happen if you topple it down, but it's like, because you know what I mean. But like.
Yeah, and the name for wonderful means to do something wonderful, to be too difficult, to be unusual, to be a miraculous act, right? To separate, to distinct. So it's just like, again, like, to be too difficult, like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, you know, the value. We were talking about this in the review yesterday, where like people have it, and this is all the Old Testament. This is a so-called horrible, terrible Old Testament God that's saying that Cain, when he was in Eve's womb, was fearfully and wonderfully made by God. And
so was Hitler.
Right. And that's why I say, like, we have to be careful about dehumanizing language. We have to be very, very careful. Because that's somebody that is too difficult to make, biblically speaking. Only, it's like, the word is too difficult. It means, like, only God could pull this off, basically, is the idea. So to know that you're loved like that, and that type of attention was given to you, like, is one of the most liberating kind of things for you to be able to ingest, and then to know.
Oh, that's my turkey timer. It's interesting. Go ahead.
Just to know
that
that you know, in the story of the prodigal son, people say it's like the greatest story of all time. You know, being able to go back after you've, you know, destroyed everything or whatever it is. And, you know, there's an invitation waiting patiently outside. And it's just like, you know, it's one of those things that I never, ever, ever, ever will ever get tired of, ever. That story. And I'll never outgrow it. And it's there's never, ever going to be a time when I'm just not like... It's unbelievable. It's just the best story start to finish ever. And it's the story that gives birth to all stories, at least in the Western world. There's no major Western story that we know of that does not have elements of our original story. And it's
true. Yeah.
None of us have been able to get over it. You know, if you cried during Lord of the Rings or whatever, it doesn't, like, none of us have been able to escape that story.
You don't have to cry over it if you enjoyed it, the story.
Yeah.
That means it's
pretty crazy. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
Oh, just, you know, like when you think about, like, in vitro or something, like, they've got the pieces and they put them together in a little petri dish to get, like, jumpstart the thing going.
Yeah.
But, like, even still, like, then they have to just leave it. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's check it in 24 to 48 hours. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it still takes, like, if it takes off, it's because God made it to take off, and the entire process is his hands obviously on it. It's just crazy. And it's wild to me that we can have, like, we can be so deluded to believe such a lie of how valueless we may feel about ourselves or whatever when God has said completely otherwise. But like, it's like the world walks around under this grand delusion because, one, because of how we treat each other, and two, because of how people feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And the fact that even that abuse can even happen to kids is horrible and sad, because, like, abuse to anybody is bad, but abuse to kids, it's like, I don't want to say that kids are more valuable than adults, but I think in my heart I believe that.
Well, they ought to be protected more than adults, obviously.
Yeah, right, because they obviously have the same value, but, like, they're maybe because they represent God in a different way, and they show us different things about God differently than adults do, in the way that they handle things, or they, react to things. And like, kids can be really terrible, but then the way that they're so quick to
overlook offenses so they can play. It was what's his name, Sproul Jr. He says we're commanded to be childlike, not childish. And I think that's a good distinction. You know, Jesus said, unless you become like a little child, you can't enter the kingdom. And then Paul says, like, stop being children in your thinking. You know, and so that's a good dichotomy. But yeah, and being made a son and daughter of God, I mean, that's a crazy thing that I don't think people really understand, like, what that actually means. You know, I was actually thinking about that.
Better than the Annie story.
The what?
The Annie story.
What's that?
What? You don't know Annie?
Well, Orphan Annie,
yeah,
right?
Orphan Annie.
Yeah, when they had the gruel or whatever.
I feel like we have an old enough audience to understand. Yeah, I mean, then she got adopted by that rich guy.
I don't remember any of that, but I'm sure it's a good story.
She was an orphan.
So she's an orphan.
Her parents
she gets adopted.
never come back. She gets adopted by a rich guy.
There you go. That's the gospel right there. That's the good news.
And then, well, actually, I think he loves her after, but we were loved first.
Right. Well, we love because he first loved us. That's what the scripture says. I love the song. And I get it. We're in a metal channel. Some of you guys are gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's so corny, blah, blah, blah. But, you know,
It had a good sound to it.
No, it did. But, you know, just inevitably somebody's going to say something silly. But, like,
let them talk.
Sometimes it's very, very frustrating.
We welcome the comments. It helps our algorithm.
It's frustrating to me that I cannot articulate, you know, fully what it actually means to walk with Christ and to have Him in your life and then the security that I have in Him and how I feel, you know, like it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, but it's not even on us. We can't like explain it because we're trying to explain the unexplainable. But when somebody suddenly understands the unexplainable, then what you said makes sense. Oh, that's what he was struggling to explain.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, you know, we've been blessed in our lives to kind of be there as you know, Jesus was capturing somebody, and like you just watch them try to explain what's happening to themselves, and they're failing miserably. Yeah, and that's how you know it's real. You know. Yeah.
You know what's crazy about that? You guys aren't even probably going to care about this information, but it's in my mind, so I'm going to tell you. Was because of the way that I was raised, like, you had to, like, if somebody didn't become a Christian, it was on you. And if they went to hell, it was also on you. You know what I mean? Like, that, the blood is on your hands, baby. That's why you gotta constantly be talking. And, like, that kind of is what, you know, people will be like, oh, they were shoving their religion down people's throats. Well, well, you would too if you believed that people were going to hell and it was your fault. Yeah. So, because that was, like, my mentality, and I was always, like, any conversation that I had with people, actually, I think that that's part of the reason why I'm awkward sometimes in conversations, is because I'm, like, learning to have just conversations for the sake of conversations, instead of, like, everything was always, like, okay, how can I get a little into
some tactic?
Yeah, it was always, like, trying to find some in to get these people out of hell, you know what I mean? So, because I don't have that view anymore, it, like, I don't know, it makes things different. But anyway, so, like, that person, when she became a Christian, it was like so painless looking because like she had never been around us before. We didn't do anything to help this person, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
She was sitting right there. It was like one small conversation, and then...
Yeah, it's one little conversation.
Yeah.
She looked at me with her demonic eyes. And I said, if I show you this thing in the Bible, you believe it? She goes, okay. And I showed it to her, and she goes, okay, I'm in. And we prayed for her, and then we dunked her, and then
she got baptized.
Her bad eyes left immediately.
The weirdest thing, and so for me it was like, I don't know, it was like...
What? What?
Because like salvation was such a troublesome thing to, you know what I mean? Like you work and you work, you work, you work, and it was like, wait, who even put any work in on that?
It's a 2-minute conversation.
Yeah.
2-minute conversation.
But that's the thing, you know, God's gonna do.
But
something
then when she went upstairs and you looked at her notebook,
it was
obvious.
It wasn't her notebook. It was her journal.
Journal, poetry.
Why did she even have that?
You know,
maybe she had pictures in her phone of her poetry.
Poetry and all that.
But it was like she was saying things that, like she was quoting scripture in her journal,
had no clue.
and she'd never read a Bible a day in her life.
We hadn't read a Bible.
She wasn't even around other people that were.
And she had a lot of things in her life where
she was like a spiritual person, like searching for spirituality.
Right.
And so I think that God was whispering to her in that stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious. And I would be like, oh my gosh. She'd be like, what? And then I'd open up a Bible and be like, yo.
Look.
And she, it was insane. It's insane. Good stuff. Yeah. Unbelievable. Corny. I don't care.
That's an 11 for me.
It's 11 for me. Good song. Shout out to big homie Leah, Theocracy, all those wonderful, beautiful. I talked to her a few times. Talked to Theocracy. I'll tell you about that off camera. Shout out to Kellen Dross, the big homie. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.